Hey guys, so you might be wondering, Megan, why are you wearing some snazzy nerd glasses? And that's because I thought it would be fun/funny if for my college advice series I looked like a nerd or professory and student and scholarly. I don't know. I thought it was funny. They were here. I just found them. But basically, I'm doing my first episode segment in my Dr. Meghan college advice series, and this first one is the most obvious way to start, and that is applying. And this basically is targeted to people in the US. It's so weird to me that I have to say that, like I totally forget that people in like other countries watch me. Not that I forget about you guys, but like it's just surreal to me that like, I don't even know, it's surreal to me that people besides like Delaney and Justine and Sydney and friends from back home watch my videos. Basically, I'm going to be talking about like American college, university. There's a difference, but we're not getting into that because it's not a difference in America. But yeah, so if you're from like the UK but you want to go to school in America, or you're from like New Zealand, want to go to college in America, this will help you. But if you're like looking to apply to like schools in China, like I really have no idea. And I have an entire page of advice. I didn't even realize I had that much to say. But let me get started. These are totally out of order and random. I just wrote down everything that came to my head. So the first piece of advice is apply to every state school and university that you can. For me, that's the CSUs and the UCs, which are University of California or California State University, because I live in California. Well, like at least for California, this applies to California. I'm not sure about other schools, but for me, all the UCs were on one application. So I had like the essays I had to write for that, and I literally just clicked the boxes for all of that. And that saves so much time. It does cost per each application, but honestly, you could end up liking a school and not even knowing it. It's just keeping it your backup choices. That's like all I can suggest, is you want to make sure you have a backup. And applying to all the CSUs and the state schools, it ends up just clicking buttons and clicking buttons and clicking buttons. The UC application, I personally found the easiest application there was, aside from the CSU. The CSU, you don't have to write anything. There's no essays, there's no nothing. You submit your transcript, your GPA, all of your breadth requirements, your A through G requirements, all those things. I personally am not going to talk about your A through G requirements and GPA requirements and stuff like that. I'm going to have websites listed in the down bar that can help you figure out stuff, and you will find all of that out your senior year. They'll tell you, they'll teach you. But basically, those were the easiest applications for me, and you literally just click boxes. So I recommend applying to all the ones that apply to you. Obviously for me, like I didn't want to go to like Farmville, so I didn't click those ones, but the ones that I liked in Northern California, the ones I liked in Southern California, like I just clicked those, like the ones I could feasibly, like, even if I didn't want, like really want to go there, I was like, you know what, just click the button. It's an extra however much money it was, but it really helps because it's just saves so much time and it gives you a lot more schools and a lot bigger pool to pick from. Keep track of the Common App. The Common App is a website, opens in October, and it is for private schools. You really need to keep track of the Common App because the Common App will not email you. It is not your parent. It's not going to be like, hey, don't forget you have a deadline this day. And every Common App application, every school, all of your private schools will be on there that you end up like typing in, be like, I want to apply here, 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 and here. All of the dates are different. Not all the schools pick the same day. They need to submit certain things, and all the schools require different things. So check the Common App like 5 times a day and drill those dates into your head. You cannot forget them at all because they don't care. They really don't care. And that's the saddest part in the college application process. You forget something, that's your loss. They're not going to fix it for you. They're not going to help you fix it. They're just going to be like, well, sucks to suck. I just bookmarked the Common App and I was always looking at it and all those things, and make sure you click every little link there is, because there's some hidden links where it's like in tiny little fonts, like if you're applying for this major, click this link. The Common App is designed to confuse and scare the crap out of you. It scared the living daylights out of me. I'm pretty sure Sydney and I just cried when we saw the Common App. It's intimidating. Sit down with people who understand it, and it just takes a lot of time. Go sign up for the Common App the day it opens in October. It will make your life a whole lot easier if you understand it even before you need to start applying, so you can apply at the necessary time, but you actually understand it at that point, because it is really confusing. My next piece of advice is getting 5 letters of recommendation. Most schools only require 1 to 3, but getting 5 means that you can pick between like which ones sound the best, and definitely tell the teachers that you're applying, the teachers you're asking to write your letters of recommendation, or your professors, or like your dance teacher, or any like person who's writing a letter of recommendation. Make sure they know what school you're applying to, and make sure they know like what program within that school you're applying to. If you're going to school for history, your history is your designated major, make sure if your English teacher's writing a recommendation, like tell her like, please focus on any essay we've done with history, talk about all that stuff. And also like get like a checklist or something and be like, I really want you to talk about these attributes, these attributes, these attributes, this thing I've done, this thing I've done, and this thing I've done, so they can all of them, and you can focus on the same thing in your application and really like hit your strengthening points, not just like, oh, they're a great person overall. It's like they want specifics, like specific traits that separate you from everybody else and make you unique and asset to their school. Make sure you check departmental supplemental applications. That sounds like complete gibberish if you have never heard of this. Supplemental applications are something that typically are used, you can use them for anything. I think the UCS supplemental application is just in addition to the application. It's typically an essay, but make sure you check for what it is. If it's an English program, you're gonna have to write something and show your writing, and they probably will give you a prompt. If you're an acting major like me, you have to audition. So there are things. The supplemental application will not be on the Common App, and it will not be on your UCCSU app. You have to go onto the school's website and go into a specific program you want to be in and find the supplemental application on there. It'll tell you what it is or when it uploads or who you should call or who you should email to get it, because it's not going to be automatically on any of your regular applications because it's a specific department. If you're applying for a really specific major, most of the time you're auditioning, you're trying to get into a specific school. Like for me, I could get into academically part of the school, but then I wouldn't get into the acting theater school, and that doesn't matter. Like it needs to match. Like you have to get in academically, and then based on what your major is, if you're going to a school that really focuses on that, and that I know for a fact is really true in any of the arts, painting, drawing, acting, voice and dance, as well as English. Like those, I know it's really focused on the school and the department that you're in, so make sure you really research that as well as like the regular application, because the supplemental application is what's really getting you into what you want to go and like where you want to go. It'll be a lot more designated towards your major. My next piece of advice, if you do not know what you want to do and you want to apply undeclared, really check out the likelihood that you will get an undeclared, because sometimes it can be easier to go under a really, really obscure major, but you just need to make sure that that school will let you change majors. Some schools you can get in at like a really easy major, like pick a stupid easy major, you get into the school, but then they won't let you switch your major, or you'll have to reapply to get into a different school. So you really need to focus on that. If you're planning on changing your major, make sure you could get into the school with a different major as well before you get into a school and you join it and you're like, hey, well, I decided to do business because I wanted to for 5 minutes, but now I want to be a science major, and you can't get into their science department. You want to make sure that you're set for the next 4 years, 6 years, however long it's going to take you to finish school before you apply, so you don't end up somewhere and you're like, I'm stuck in a major I don't want. And it's not bad applying undeclared. I'm saying that now. Sometimes it can be harder and sometimes really impacted because a lot of people apply undeclared, and so they have so many applications for undeclared, but still do it. Honestly, there's a lot of places you can check to see your rankings and see how well you add up and compare to other people, but applying undeclared is not a bad thing at all. It's totally doable, and it's not like, oh, you're stupid, or like, oh, you'll die. It's not true. You'll write at least one essay. I want to say I have like 10 essays in total. Make sure you're not generic in your essay. Don't say what you think they want to hear. Don't say like, oh, like I went through this hardship in my life when my cat died. You really want to like say what stands out about you. You don't have to have a sob story. You don't have to have something crazy unique about you. Just really, you want people to get a sense of yourself when they read your essay, and they want to see what you can bring to the school. So for me, I definitely tied back my essay into my major and how I thought that that school would work for my major. So tell like a story or something, like paint a really clear picture of what you want to come across in your essay, like what traits you want to come across, like how do you want to portray yourself in this essay, because this is so much of how they decide. So just don't be generic. Like really spend a lot of time thinking about different things, specific things that happened in your life that defined who you were, or like different events in your life that really meant a lot to you, and then how that relates back into college and your career and your future and what you want to do with that. Have everyone proofread your essay. I don't care if you get embarrassed about that. I want to say I had every single teacher, I went to a small high school, but like I had like every single teacher in my high school proofread my essay, and all of my friends and my parents, everyone proofread my essay, and someone could always find something new or some way to add it, because this needs to be perfect. This is the essay of your entire life. And that sounds terrifying, but it really is. This is the one that you don't want to write the night before. You don't want to just have one person proofread it or proofread it on like Microsoft Word. You want to make this perfect and flawless, so you can never work on it too much. Most schools will have prompts. The Common App also has prompts, but I want to say every school I applied to had the free choice option, and I would say write your free choice option the summer before your senior year of high school. That is what I did, and it was the most relieving thing in the entire world. I didn't even end up using that essay, but just doing a practice essay and something like that, just like just fixing my brain and putting it in the college mood over the summer. I did it in August. It helped so much. Just like knowing you're not going into senior year being like, I have no idea what I'm in for. Just like start writing an essay that seems like it would be a college essay. You can Google like what are college essays like online. Try that out. I actually have friends who wrote theirs over the summer, ended up just perfecting it the rest of first semester of their senior year and ended up submitting it to colleges. So I would say definitely get a head start. Definitely apply to schools you haven't even like toured. That's my biggest thing. Don't be like, oh well, I didn't see it, so I don't know if I'll like it. You really need to focus on making sure you get into a school. And nowadays it's really hard to get into college. All these colleges that used to be so easy to get into are getting harder and harder and harder. But make sure, even if you haven't toured it, even if you don't know you'll like it, just apply. Apply to every school that you think you have even the slightest possibility or slightest chance of going into. Sydney, for a fun fact, didn't want to apply to the school that she's going to. She was like, no, I'm not going to apply to it. My mom went there. Like, that's stupid. Like, I'm not going to go. And she applied and then toured it. Then didn't like it, then toured it again, then I was like, I'm lying, I love this place, I want to go here. And that's something the same, if you're short on money, I would definitely say tour after you apply. Limit the schools to the ones you think you're really going to go to, because applying to college is expensive. And I didn't even know this, and no one told me this. Applying to college, they cost per application and per college you're applying to. And I want to say upwards, the most expensive college I applied to was $120 for one school to apply to. The rest were like $50 each. But that's still a lot. I applied to 19 schools. That's a lot of money. And then on top of it, if you are auditioning, you have to pay for auditions as well. If you guys want me to do a video on like applying to be an acting major, I can do that because I've been through all of that entire application process. So make sure you know how much it's going to cost and make sure you allot that. If your family cannot afford for you to apply to 15 schools, pick the schools like your top. Pick like the 3 that you really like want but you think is a stretch but it's still like a possibility of you getting into, and pick 3 that you know you will get into. So you have that like even way, so you know that you're eventually going to get to one school. Like, you cannot apply if you have like a 3.5. Do not apply to Harvard, Yale, Brown, and Princeton and then cry when you don't get your letters back. You need to be realistic about this. If you don't have above a 4.0, do not bother wasting your time with Ivy Leagues and really great schools like that unless you're going for a specific major. There obviously are cases and stories where people have gotten in with lower GPAs and stuff like that, but make sure you're realistic in your endeavors. I understand people who have like Princeton is their dream school, but sometimes you just have to be realistic because it's wasting money, it's wasting your time and applications when you could be applying to schools that you could get into. So by all means, that does not mean that you're not going to get into school. There are definitely schools that I got into based on audition and essay rather than my grades. So every school favors different things differently. So if you apply to impacted major as well as a school that really focuses a lot on your essay, you could get into a place that typically you wouldn't get into GPA requirement wise. Just make sure you do your research beforehand. That's what it is. Like, you'll find out. Like, you can see how much schools weigh in on each thing. In the websites, again, that I'm listing in the down bar, you can really like see their actual breakdown of their application and how much they favor each thing. So just do your research, because that's how you're going to know, like, when you end up applying to schools that you really think are plausible. But definitely give yourself like a freebie. Like, if you really want to go to, I don't know, like a really hard school and like it's just like kind of like a long shot, just like give yourself one freebie, but don't spend all of your time and all of your energy really wishing and hoping to get in schools that are really unrealistic for you. So when you are researching schools, have a list of deal breakers. For me, I wanted a school that had Greek life. I wanted a school that wasn't a huge commuter school, and I wanted a school that was at least 50-50 men and women, because I like boys, okay? I'm gonna say it, I like boys. You make a list of deal breakers, so if you see that a school doesn't have what you want, just ignore it. Like, if it's a deal breaker, it's something, it must have your program. Don't apply to a school that doesn't have your program and doesn't have your major just because you're like, well, the campus was pretty, like, I'd like their sororities. Like, no, if they don't have your major, don't apply. Have a list of deal breakers when you're going through and making a list of all the schools you want to apply to, because that will make it so much easier and rule things out, because a lot of schools are very unique in that aspect. Maybe you want a school that's 30,000 people, maybe you want a school that's 5,000 people, or you want a private school or a public school. Just make sure you have a list in your head already of what you want. And if you don't know what you want, you'll find out what you want after trial and error, and that's how you keep that list in your head permanently, because that's how you're gonna narrow it down way quicker. Don't be late sending in your transcripts. I can't even tell you how important this was. At my high school, I was one of the first people. I asked my teacher, like the first day of school, being like, hi, when can I get my transcript to send in? Typically, it's going to be after your fall grades that you're sending them in, but it really depends on the school. You're gonna need to send in your transcript. Do not be late. Your school will probably charge you for a transcript, and some colleges will not accept late transcripts at all and you're done. or the school will charge you a hefty fee because of your late transcript. So just double check everything, and just know that the people in your like school office where you're getting these things from, they're not rocket scientists. They're not going to remember every single thing. They can mess up too. So just pop in every day, which I did, very friendly, like, hi, just making sure that you know that you need to send my transcript to this school, this school, and this school, and make sure you spell everything right on the little thing so nothing will go all haywire and wrong. Make sure you have a backup school. Like, make sure. Even if you have a solid 3.5 all of high school, apply to a school that automatically accepts people at a 3.0. Apply to a school like that, because no matter what happens with anything, you always have a school to fall back onto. You want to make sure you're not reaching for every school you're applying to. You need to have a safety net, and make sure there's at least one safety net. I say at least 2 to 3 safety nets, unless you love your backup school. And I have tons of friends who like applied to their backup schools as like a no big deal thing, then ran around and toured all the schools they got into and ended up picking their backup school. Apply for every scholarship possible. This is what Delaney's telling me. There's websites, like tons of websites that you can apply, like write essays for, do grants, all those things. Even if you think you remotely work for it, spend a lot of your time. If you're short on money and money is tight, really focus on scholarships, because schools if a school doesn't offer you financial aid, you can get scholarships on your own. You can find private scholarships, and it's completely doable. I know girls who've done those and just spent like a week straight just writing all of these essays applying for these scholarships, and have paid for half of their college and then has financial aid cover the rest of it. If you put enough honest time and effort into it, you're going to get at least one scholarship. Even if it's like a $200 scholarship, that all adds up, and it adds up and it adds up, and that's the less amount and less amount that you have to pay. So this is my #1 piece of advice, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I would say try not to get your heart set on a single school. When I was in 8th grade, I decided I was going to NYU, and I did no research about NYU, but I was just decided I loved it. And then finally, my junior year of high school is when I started researching colleges, and I was like, NYU is not what I want. It is nothing what I want. And then after that, I was like, you know what, there's no point in having a top school, especially for me, because I audition for programs. It's very like random if you get in or not. Like, it's not like, oh, if you have this grade, this grade, and this grade, you'll get in. It's like, oh, if they like your audition piece, if you do well on this, they'll, all of that. It's really up to the decision of them. And having a top school, yes, it doesn't give you drive and motivation to work really hard. I honestly think you should have drive and motivation to work really hard to get to college. Not a specific college, just to college. That's how I got through school. I hated school, but I worked my ass off because I wanted to be in college and go to college. So you don't have to have your heart set on a specific school, because every time for me, I've had a friend who's had their heart set on a school. They either get really excited and it's really happy and that's awesome that they were so excited, or they completely get their heart broken and it ruins the rest of the college experience applying for them when they get all these other acceptance letters that you're not going to be nearly as happy about because you got your heart set on one specific school. It's fine to love schools, but try as hard as you can not to get your heart set on one and buy all this college gear before you even get in, because it can just be really heartbreaking. And even if most people I know really did get into their top school because they were realistic about it, but if you don't, I just feel like that's a lot of heartache that could have been avoided. So most schools have a college or a guidance, career, college-y counselor person. If you don't know whose yours is, my school had a fantastic one. I love her. But if you don't know who it is, go into the office and ask if there's someone who really helps students meet with that. We had one that met with us like, I want to say once a week, or maybe less, maybe like once every couple weeks. She would meet with us and check up with us about all of that. Make friends with that person, that man or woman. Really make friends with them. Show them what you want. They can help you find your college. They're such a wonderful asset, because it's their job to know about applying to colleges and all about colleges and all different colleges. So I just make friends with them, because it'll make your life a whole lot easier. And my next piece of advice is just do your research. Just do a ton of research. Honestly, it's like searching for your prom dress, but it's colleges. You know, the girls who spend like hours and hours on every dress website there is. I was like that with colleges. I started my junior year. It's never too early to start. Just compile a list. Just put like a word list on your computer screen, and you're like, oh, this sounds like a cool school. Or if you hear a school being talked about on TV for like a wonderful program or something like that, just like, oh, put it in the back of your mind, just keep it down, so by the time it comes to applying to schools, you already kind of have like an idea of some schools you thought were you were interested in looking at. Or even if you don't know exactly what you want, just realize what you don't want. Like, oh, I don't want it to be in an urban campus or anything like that. And maybe try two totally different completely schools to get that idea. tour a tiny little private school in a rural setting, and then tour a giant public school in a city, and see like, what did I like and dislike about those both, because then you can kind of figure out where you really want to go with it. And my last piece of advice is don't be scared. It is overwhelming. I'm sorry, I feel like this video probably scared a lot of you guys. It is doable. If it was not doable, then people would not be in college and people would not be here. I would not be sitting in my dorm room today. It is completely doable if you do not procrastinate and you really ask for help when you need it. If your parents aren't around or your parents really aren't involved in helping you further your education, find a counselor at your school or a teacher or a family friend or even like your friend's parents or something like that, because someone is going to want to help you get into college. Honestly, it's over. Second semester senior year, you will have so much fun. First semester senior year, you'll want to kill yourself, I can promise you. You're wanting to die and curl up in a hole. You are so stressed you just cry and rip your hair out. But second semester will make it all worth it when your grades don't matter, not that I said that, and everything is carefree and wonderful. So I wish you guys good luck on applying to colleges. I'm sorry if this really did not apply to you because you might be like 12 or something, but maybe you can save this video for the future, and thumbs it up if you like these videos, and stay tuned for the next Dr. Meghan college advice. Goodbye, my students, my pupils. I sound like Trelawney. Do, 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 do.